Starfield came out a couple of weeks ago, and while I was going through my first playthrough of it, one question kept ringing out loudly in my mind. Will Bethesda ever change? Bethesda is one of the most legendary and well-respected video game developers of all time. Or should I say, they were. Because after Fallout 76, Skyrim Anniversary Edition, and all that Creation Club shit, it's safe to say Bethesda's credibility has gone way the fuck down. And it's a shame, because during the late 2000s and early 2010s, Bethesda quickly gained the same cult status that Valve and id Software had in their respective eras by releasing classic RPGs of the time. Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, we all know these games. But they decided to piss all that goodwill away by becoming literally the stereotype of the evil, greedy video game company. Releasing games that are unfinished, re-releasing games for the third time, overpriced microtransactions and paid mods, mediocre flops, you all know the deal. It's like after Fallout 4, they decided to do everything in their power to piss every gamer in the world off. But guess what? There's hope. It wouldn't be like that this time, because Starfield is gonna be great. It's gonna be the biggest Bethesda game ever, be endlessly replayable, and be the same cultural phenomenon that Skyrim was, and it'll be Game of the Year. Or at least that's what Bethesda and everyone on the hype train wanted you to think. But needless to say, as a longtime Bethesda fan, I was very skeptical about Starfield. Because being a Bethesda fan over these past several years has felt like getting a swift kick to the balls. Repeatedly. I didn't even look at any of the marketing or trailers for this game because I knew I would just get let down by Bethesda once again. But after getting my hands on it and playing the game for about 30 hours, I will say it's not a total disaster. It's just pretty mid. That's not to say I didn't have fun with it, and I think a lot of Bethesda fans have had fun with this game. But those are Bethesda fans, and this is a Bethesda game. And that's something that I've heard a lot in the reviews for this game. This is a Bethesda game. And if you like Bethesda's brand of gameplay, you're probably gonna like this game. But what's clear to me after playing Starfield is that Bethesda has refused to adapt or evolve the way they make their games. Just for example, the level of writing in Starfield feels like it's the same as it was in Fallout 3, which is a 15-year-old game. The quests feel a bit more developed, but they feel just as formulaic as they have always been in Bethesda games, with an over-reliance on fetch questing and RPG tropes. When I play Starfield, the awkward dialogue, weird inhuman-looking characters, and trademarked Bethesda writing makes me feel like I'm playing a game from 10 years ago. And that's not even to mention the gameplay, where it feels like Bethesda has tripled down on everything everyone has been criticizing their games over the past several years for. The one that sticks out to me is the over-reliance on fast travel. Previous games have had you fast travel a lot, and as many have pointed out before me, this disconnects the player from the game world and makes it feel smaller than it actually is. But in previous games, it was avoidable and not as big as a problem as some people make it out to be. But in Starfield, it's as mandatory and as obnoxious as ever. And because of that, it makes Starfield's world feel as small as a Bethesda game world has ever been. And that's not even to mention the combat, which basically feels exactly the same as Fallout 4 with only minor improvements. I mean, seriously, despite all of the technological advancements we've had in the past 8 years since Fallout 4's release, the AI is just as brain dead. This is just not acceptable for a blockbuster AAA game in 2023. And I'm bringing up all these flaws that Starfield has because I'm trying to illustrate a point, which is that Bethesda has been remarkably stagnant as a game developer over the past 15 to 20 years. And it's like they're aware of it. Todd Howard himself has called the game Skyrim in space. But what he and the rest of Bethesda fails to realize is that Skyrim is a 12-year-old game, and as much as I and everyone else loves it to death, gaming has changed a lot in 12 years. We've been through 2 console generations, and countless influential games have changed what gamers want and expect from developers over the years. And because of that, releasing a game that emulates Skyrim now just won't achieve the same critical and commercial success that it did back then. But they're still releasing the same games with the same mechanics and the same flaws like it's 2011. And I mean that very literally, because these flaws have been a thing in Bethesda games since, like, Oblivion. Bethesda games have always had shitty writing, dialogue, quests, weird character models, awkward, janky gameplay, and a whole lot of bugs. They've also always tried to make the game world as big and as epic as possible, without considering the ramifications of that. And speaking of that, one of the criticisms about Starfield that I've seen a lot is that it's wide as an ocean, but deep as a puddle. And what's funny about this line is that it's been a criticism of Bethesda games since, like, Skyrim. But now, it's like Bethesda has made the game with this idea in mind, with there being 1,000 randomly generated empty planets to explore with nothing to do but mine resources. And they're not even continuous, so you can't get that same feeling of exploring a vast, majestic world as in Skyrim. It's just a randomly generated 5,000-foot square surrounded by invisible walls. I can't lose myself in the world if there's nothing to lose myself in. All these things I've been bringing up lead me to the same conclusion. Every trademarked flaw that Bethesda games have had over the past decade and a half is the exact same with Starfield. And every single negative trend that their games have been following over the past decade has gotten worse. Whether that be making a vast but empty open world that makes you rely on fast travel, embracing random artificial gameplay elements like radiant quests, and the decline of the world building and immersiveness of their games, it all points to one thing. They haven't changed. They haven't adapted or evolved the way they make their games at all. They've been making basically the same game with the same action RPG formula for the past 15 years because they want to replicate the successes they had with Skyrim and Fallout 3. And that's why they call it Skyrim in space, because that's exactly what it is. A hollow imitation of something from years past that people don't want anymore. Because gaming has changed, and Bethesda hasn't. So I was kind of hateful towards Bethesda in this video, and that's totally not because they didn't give me a review copy for Starfield. I'm totally not mad about that at all. But with that being said, I'm the Logumuffin. Subscribe or I'll kick you in the dick, and I'll see you up ahead.